Hey everyone, and welcome to Money Moves for Teens. My name is Talia Levy, and in this podcast, I will be talking about business, entrepreneurship, and of course, money. I hope you take something away from this episode and enjoy. When it comes to money, there are so many factors we all have to consider. When to spend money, when not to spend money, when to save and when not to, and so on. It can become overwhelming trying to account for every tip you come across while dealing with your finances. But luckily for you guys, you still have time before you have to manage a salary from a full-time job. You have time to learn these finance tips and be well prepared once you do get to that point. This episode, I'll be talking about 8 things to avoid as an adult relating to personal finance. And remember, if you're smart about time management and are being proactive as a teenager when it comes to learning about this topic, you will have a huge advantage in the future. The first thing you should avoid is lacking long-term savings plans. According to CNBC, the average wedding costs almost $34,000. That money has to come from somewhere, and many people don't consider how these expenses will negatively impact their bank account later down the road. Things like weddings take lots of time, planning, and most definitely money to pull off successfully. That's why it's so important to think about how you could start to save now for these big events in the future. As a teenager, you could be saving for your own car. Instead of buying a car the day after you decide you want one, think about how you can make the money to pay for it months from now. How much money will you need every month to make your big purchase? If you just buy everything spontaneously, that can cause large amounts of debt, which leads to stress. This is why looking ahead is very beneficial when planning your finances. As Sean Covey says in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens, you should begin with the end in mind. As a teen, you may also be thinking about purchasing an apartment. Depending on your age, it could make sense to start saving for that today. Later down the road, you might want to send your children to college. Starting to save every month for that specific goal will help you to avoid large amounts of student loan debt. So look at the big picture and what purchases you will need to make months or even years from now, and think about how you might start saving for those goals. The second thing to avoid is not having a plan once you finish college, and this tip applies more to those in their 20s. College tuition is not cheap, and if you have no idea as to how you're going to pay for your schooling once you finish, that can lead to a big mountain of debt I don't think anyone wants to deal with. I'm not telling you to only consider colleges in the medical or law field so you will have a high-paying salary later. You should do what you enjoy, but again, you have to look ahead. If you're going to a school for the arts, you might consider temporarily picking up a side hustle if you know your dream job won't cover all of your school expenses. And actually look at the numbers and do the math for this point. Figure out how much money you'll need to put aside every month to pay off your debt and go from there. Third, you should avoid buying new cars. With a starting salary, buying a new $40,000 car isn't the smartest financial decision. It can be tempting to swipe your credit card for this purchase, especially if you see your peers around you doing that, but you have to be honest with yourself. You know the price of a new car is not in your budget, and buying a used one won't hurt. It might not be the flashiest one on the market, but you're not going to be in debt over your head just because you're trying to keep up with others around you. Money management expert Dave Ramsey says he doesn't recommend buying a new car ever until your net worth is over $1 million. Also, with cars, you're not investing in anything when you buy one. You're not going to earn a positive return, meaning more money, by making that purchase. As a matter of fact, as soon as you drive the car away from the dealer, it has already gone down in value. You would have already lost money on it if you took it back the next day. So in the end, it's a smarter financial decision to buy a used car over a new one. Fourth, don't try to always keep up with the latest trends. Like with the car, it can be tempting to look at your teenage peers and see their new clothes or technology and feel the need to keep up. But again, you have to be honest with yourself and think, is buying a new $800 iPhone every year a smart decision? If you're making these purchases to impress those around you, you're really not even buying for yourself. And always trying to keep up will create a negative effect on your bank account and put you in lots of debt. So remember to take a step back before making a purchase. Are you buying because you need the item or because you want to fit the trend and be like those around you? The fifth thing you should avoid when becoming an adult is putting off investing. It is never too early to invest your money, and surprise, this money just grows over time. Don't wait because you think you need a certain salary to begin. Or if the idea of investing is confusing to you, don't just avoid it because you don't understand it. You can read about it or ask others to explain it to you. I hope my podcast can also act as an information source when it comes to investing in future episodes. But please note that starting investing as early as possible will help you out so much in the long run. In my 9th episode on portfolio income, I talk about exactly how you can start doing this as a teenager, so I recommend listening to that episode because I go into full detail on the topic. I'll just briefly go over the next steps I gave in that episode. If you're under 18, you can ask your parents to open a custodial investment account for you, and I suggest starting to invest in the S&P 500 index. By doing that, you are buying a small piece of ownership in the 500 largest companies in the U.S. stock exchange. You can look at the sites Stockpile or Charles Schwab to begin investing. Again, I recommend listening to my 9th episode for more detail on this topic, but in conclusion, you should start investing now because it will greatly benefit your financial future. 6th, you should avoid putting off your retirement savings. This one is sort of a combination between my first point of having long-term savings goals and my last point of starting to invest your money now. Retirement is a future goal that most people have, and some plans you can choose when saving for retirement include investment options. And I know as teenagers, retirement seems a long way off, but you have to consider the fact that you need a substantial amount of money to actually retire. So maybe start by sacrificing one mall trip a month with friends. You then could put that saved money towards retirement and watch your balance keep growing because 1, it's invested, and 2, you're contributing to it regularly. Also, similar to my last point, you should start as soon as possible because this money just increases with time. I will have many episodes in the future relating to retirement savings and how you can start as a teenager, so stay tuned. The 7th thing you should avoid when it comes to your money is not planning for emergencies, not having that emergency fund. Really, anything can happen at any time, and if you're not financially prepared for those surprise situations, it can really take a toll on your bank account. If you're in debt and have no current fund, Dave Ramsey, as I mentioned earlier, states that you should put aside at least $1,000 to start. Once you're out of debt, you should start working your way up to an ideal 3 to 6 month emergency fund. So if you lost your job, you would still be able to support yourself for that amount of time because of the safety net you've created. And when these unexpected situations do come up, you don't have to take out huge amounts of debt to pay for them because you took this necessary step. And lastly, the 8th thing you should avoid is not budgeting. A major reason why people lose money is because they don't know where their money is going. They get their paycheck, then by the end of the month, they don't know where all of it went, leading them to take out debt. If you budget your money, you can clearly account for your giving, saving, and spending every single month. My 6th and 7th episodes went into lots of detail about budgeting, and I can link those in the description so you can check them out after this one. But in the end, your money should not be controlling you and leaving you questioning its whereabouts all the time. If that's your current situation and you're scared to actually look at what you're spending your money on, I'm sorry, but you have to deal with it up front to solve the problem at hand. And you can actually practice budgeting your money as a teenager with something called the envelope method that I talked about in my 7th episode. But budgeting is definitely a major way to take control of your finances. Those were the 8 things you should avoid when becoming an adult: a lack of savings plans, no plan after college, and buying new cars, trying to keep up with the latest trends, a lack of investing, retirement savings, and an emergency fund, and lastly, not budgeting. As I explained what you should avoid, I also talked about what you can do to counteract those things and be proactive about your finances as a teen. Doing these things will put you ahead of the game and benefit your future greatly. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen to this week's episode and learn something new. Feel free to reach out to me with any questions through my Twitter at MoneyMovesForTeens or through my Instagram at talia.simone_. If you decide to follow, you will be notified every time I release a new episode, and I do frequent polls about my podcast so you all can be part of my podcast decisions, such as choosing episode topics. If you are more of a visual learner, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel where I create animations for these episodes. It's the same great information, just in a video form. If you would like to continue building on what you learned this episode while supporting my podcast, in my descriptions I always have an outline and discussion guide. You can also go to buymeacoffee.com/Talia Levy and access them through the shop section of my site. Print out the guides for your favorite episodes and talk about them with friends and family. Also, if you like Money Moves for Teens, be sure to give a rating and share it with those who will benefit from the information. I hope to see you next week. Bye!